Hi everyone, I'm Anthony O'Flynn. Plato stated that no one is more hated than he who speaks the truth. And here we are at a massive crossroads with the passing of the Queen. It's an extremely fragile time for the powers that be, the institutions, the monarchy, because basically with this passing, there has been a vacuum. Now, obviously, Charles will assume the role of king. That was decided, of course, when he was born, but the energetic vacuum that's now being created means it's a very destabilising time for the elite. Going forward, I don't really consider Charles to be a popular figure, a popular royal. I'm not a royalist by any means, which you'll understand by the end of this video. He's a Scorpio, Leo Ascendant, Taurus Moon. He's not endeared by the British people, the people around the world, and either is Camilla, and of course with the divorce of Diana and the tragic death of Diana means that basically he will not enjoy the overall popularity that the Queen Elizabeth has had. Having said that, the monarchy will continue, and it's been quite amazing to see the outpouring of sentiment, opinions, views, etc. across social media in regard to the support or opposition to the monarchy. And it really is, the idea of a royal family really is one of the greatest scams in the history of the human race, because the idea that any of these royal families would actually rule is based on what? That they rule by divine right. Well, who gives them that? According to them, God. But the history of the royal families showed the amount of violence, conquering, colonization, imperialism, all these things are hardly the actions or the merits of a benevolent God. It's the actions of tyranny, of abuse of power, and sheer violence to get your own way. And this is really what needs to be brought into question right from the start, because as we've seen throughout the process of the global awakening, we can see that the actual 9/11, the events of 9/11, whose 21st anniversary is actually tomorrow, triggered what I refer to as the modern day truth movement in my book. It's a pivotal moment in the global shift, what happened on September 11, 2001. And following that, there have been a number of series of events, what I refer to as nodes of awakening in my book. And obviously the pandemic has been the biggest one in this decade so far. So we see that because of this adverse reaction, there is this awakening, there is this questioning and so on. And we are about to see a huge awakening, and the spotlight and revelations really being put on the British royal family with all the scandals that they've endured over the years. And this is really just the beginning. This is going to be the biggest news story in 2022, and it will trigger a whole avalanche of awakening for people who are unaware of exactly what is going on with these so-called divinely elected people to rule over us. And people seem to have very short memories, that the whole idea of kings and queens going back to feudal times, it's basically a form of slavery, of peasantry, of paying taxes to the king and queen. For what reason? I mean, the idea that all this money, this taxpayer money, there's all these taxpayer handouts, they're basically welfare recipients. Why? And if you would ask them directly, why are you believe that you're entitled to this huge, colossal amounts of money from taxpayers who can barely afford at this point to keep the lights on and keep the electricity going in various countries around Europe now, and England's been hit very hard. What gives you that right? And the answer would most likely be, well, because I'm the king. And the response to that is, and so being king, what gives you the right to all of these resources from the public people, from your subjects? And when you actually break the hypnosis, the indoctrination, the cognitive dissonance around this, you actually start to realize that the entire born to rule mentality that the royals have is just based on mass hypnosis. There is no genuine reason why they should be entitled to all these resources and this life of luxury. And some of the extravagances, which I'm going to go through in this video, are not only revealing, but truly shocking that people actually on this planet consider that it's okay to live like that. So basically, the monarchy is worth, according to Forbes, $88 billion. And as a reminder, a billion is actually equal to 1,000 million. So what is that money being spent on? If they are ruling by divine right, then shouldn't they do acts to reflect that divinity, to reflect that purity? Absolutely not. We can see that there's all sorts of ridiculous things. For example, Prince Charles has 101 staff that consist of butlers, 4 chefs, and 3 dressers. The guy can't even dress himself. And Michael Fawcett, who was a previous royal valet in the 80s to Prince Charles, was actually tasked, he claimed, with putting on the toothpaste of Charles's toothbrush. And this guy is going to be king today, officially. I'm not sure exactly when. And the man actually employs someone, or believes he's entitled, to get someone to put toothpaste on his toothbrush. I mean, it is an absolute farce that we should have any respect or positive attitude towards these people. Well, the way they live is just completely absurd. And let's not forget that Prince Charles is actually had a lot of ties, close links to Jimmy Savile, who was a DJ and BBC entertainer. Now, Jimmy Savile, who has passed now, is considered to be one of the most notorious pedophiles in the history of the UK. The Guardian reports that Savile abused at least 500 children, at least, and was reported to have a dungeon actually in his house to carry out these acts. And when he actually passed, Prince Charles, or King Charles, led the tributes to Savile when he died. And these allegations and links to pedophilia in the royal family, of course, also related to Prince Andrew. The ABC reported that Prince Andrew reportedly paid £12 million, 22.6 million Australian dollars in regard to as a payout for those allegations of pedophilia. And the list just goes on and on. The Platinum Jubilee for the Queen cost £28 million. That was paid for by the taxpayer. That's £28 million. What for? By what right? And it's these institutions that are in total decay and will only be highlighted very intensely as we move forwards, because at an astrological level, we're now in the final degrees of Pluto and Capricorn. And Pluto will actually move into Aquarius briefly next year, and then retrograde back into Capricorn before moving into Aquarius in 2024 for that long transit. So what we're seeing now is basically the decline of these institutions, the questioning of these institutions, the revealing that these institutions are not based on anything to do with truth or integrity or the light. They're just simply a way of maintaining power. And that's basically how the royal family has managed to accumulate such vast wealth. It's through colonization, through imperialism, through the profits of slavery, and basically through taxation of the people. And there is no legitimate reason, in my view, as to why any public resources should be given to these people, while people in the UK are suffering financially in a way that is going to intensify over the winter due to this energy crisis. And yet there is this huge outpouring of grief for this benevolent queen that's passed. And it's incredible to see the polarization, what's occurring on social media. And yet, yes, we'll see a massive awakening by those people who are living in this idea that the royal family is somehow something to be bowed down to curtsy or bow. It's an absolute farce. It's absolutely ridiculous. So they're just the introductory remarks I really wanted to make regarding this passing of the Queen, and to really highlight the fact that it's a very, very positive thing, actually. This rainbows that had actually appeared over Buckingham Palace, the way I'm interpreting that is an actual positive manifestation of this transition to a more equitable, a more fair, a more pure, a more just way of living. And this highlighting of this accumulation of resources by the royal family. And basically they have enough power to end poverty in England, perhaps even end hunger. I mean, there's a person dying of hunger on this planet this year once every 10 seconds, and yet they hoard these resources. And to claim ultimately this royal family is ruled by divine right, well, they don't look like divine beings to me, and they don't act like divine beings as these benevolent rulers, and to treat their subjects and people around the world with compassion and support their financial needs. It doesn't appear like that at all to me. But anyway, there'll be a lot more to be said about this. As you can expect to be a massive spotlight being shone on the royal family, and all the other scandals are going to be coming up over the next weeks. There's lots of them perhaps you won't have heard of. I won't go into those now, but this is a vacuum. And in my view, it is a positive vacuum, and it means that a vacuum will always ultimately be filled. And I'm not really referring to the transition of power to Prince Charles here, or King Charles, but more this linchpin of this institution, this kind of, it's a really strong institution, and this Capricorn energy that we're moving out of means that they will be questioned continuously now. They'll be under the microscope. They won't be allowed to just go spending the taxpayers' money without greater scrutiny, which means the politicians who are granting this ability for them to just simply siphon off money, it's simply a form of like royal welfare, really, will be questioned at deeper and deeper levels, particularly as the energy crisis intensifies around Europe. I mean, I've heard reports that a pint of beer is going to cost £20 in England. And meanwhile, at the same time, the UK is giving $2.8 billion to Ukraine. Price of electricity went up 25% in France in one day. In Germany, they can't even find any firewood. And The Guardian reports that the government is preparing for blackouts for days in January. And yet the cognitive dissonance, the indoctrination, the mind control is still running deep to the people in England, which have been really praising themselves for how much they've gone through this awakening with the pandemic, and the fact that they won't tolerate these totalitarian measures by the government. Well, I think they need a bit of a rethink when they see the collective masses and the hysteria that's going on in England at the moment, because every country around the world's got a long way to go, and this is just another aspect of questioning these institutions, the old paradigm, the old way of doing things, and this whole idea of divine rule by these so-called royals. Based on what? They're the kind of questions that people need to ask clearly. I'll reiterate. What gives you the right to rule? What gives you the right to be a king? Why do you see that you are entitled to this huge public purse, these expenditures on your lifestyle? Why can't you put toothpaste on your own toothbrush? Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. We live in epic times.